All right, we can go ahead and get started. Good evening. Again, my name is Lauren Delmar, and I'm with the Active Transportation team in the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. And I want to welcome you all to this meeting to discuss the Capital Bikeshare expansion in Providence District. Before we begin, I'd like to review some guidelines so everyone can participate and get the most out of this session. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to YouTube and then linked to the Capital Bikeshare webpage. Microsoft Teams does offer a live captioning service, and you can find that by clicking the 3 dots and choosing Turn on Live Captions. Once the presentation is complete, we will begin the question and answer portion, during which participants will ask their questions aloud. The chat feature has been disabled for this meeting, or at least it should have been. We'll double check. And we will not be taking written questions. If you are on the phone, please hold your questions to the end. We have instructions on how to ask questions at the conclusion of the presentation. We will also encourage you to submit your comments to today's meeting using the project webpage and online feedback or via email, or written feedback or phone call. And again, we have all of that for you at the end of the presentation. So before we begin, I just want to introduce Supervisor Palchik from the Providence District to open the meeting with any brief remarks. Supervisor Palchik.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. First of all, I just want to thank Lauren and Zach for leading us in this work. I know especially Zach and Patricia from my office have had the opportunity to meet with many of you. Sorry, I'm off camera. I've got a sick kiddo at home, so you might hear her. And I just, to me, it's so important that we continue to expand and make sure that our Capital Bikeshare here in the Providence District continues to and can even better serve our community. So as Lauren mentioned, this really is a very good opportunity to share your feedback, to help ensure that we see what you see every day and have as much input, especially details around your neighborhood that can help us better serve and expand the program. So to that, please be sure to give your feedback tonight, to share this with neighbors or friends who may not have been able to attend tonight's meeting, so that they can see the presentation and provide their input as well. So to that, I will send it back to Lauren and Zach, and have a good evening, and I will be here listening in the background. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Palchik. I'm also going to introduce Zach Desjardins from our team. He's the interim Capital Bikeshare Program Manager, and he's going to kick us off with our presentation now. Thanks.
All right. Okay, Lauren, can you see my screen?
It is loading for me.
Okay. So as Lauren said, I'm the interim Capital Bikeshare Program Manager in the Active Transportation Group at the Department of Transportation here in the county.
I can
you
see it now,
Lauren?
Yep.
All right, excellent. Okay. So Capital Bikeshare is our bicycle transit service. It allows people to rent a bike and ride to more than 700 stations across 7 member jurisdictions. It's a key first and last mile option if you want to get to our metro system. If you'd like to become a member, it's $95 a year. You can take unlimited 45-minute rides. If you're not a member, all you have to do is pay $1 to unlock a bike, and it's 5 cents a minute. And then if you're a low-income resident, you only have to pay $5 a year, and you get unlimited 60-minute rides, including free electric bike rides. The bikes are designed for safety, so they're upright, they're pretty slow, so that forces the riders to look around and be able to see what's going on. And we've had very few reported crashes thus far. Right is a photo of one of our Capital Bikeshare stations out in Reston. And this is kind of how people use it. So as I mentioned before, people are transferring from our metros as well as our Fairfax connector bus and metro bus. People use it to run errands, go to appointments, shop, and during the pandemic especially, we've seen a lot of folks take more longer rides and fun rides along our trails. It's also a great way to do a one-way trip. So if you're going to, say, a restaurant and you want to get a ride home, you can bike there and then get a ride home from someone. And one of the key features of our key goals of this program is we want to kind of reduce and replace some of these short car trips with bike share trips. So Providence District is fortunate to have 2 grants right now. So right now we've got a Transportation Alternatives Program grant for 12 stations and electric bikes. We've got a Northern Virginia Transportation Commission grant. It's for 10 stations. We've installed one, but we'd like to install 9 more. And that also covers classic bikes. And we'd like to use some local funds to move some of our existing stations to new places. So there's quite a lot going on. When we look for capital bike share stations, we're trying to build on our existing network. So in Providence District, that's primarily in Tysons and Merrifield. We'd like to connect to some of our neighboring plan networks. So the city of Fairfax in the next 6 to 12 months is hoping to bring their own capital bike share stations online, as well as George Mason University is looking to sponsor some stations around that same timeline. As I mentioned before, lots of folks are going to and from our metro. So that's a key thing to build upon. There are some technical requirements that stations have to meet. They're solar powered, so they need access to the sun, as well as some safety requirements. And then, of course, there's some programmatic requirements. We'd like to serve some of our underserved neighborhoods and serve areas with some residential density. And of course, we also would like to track some ridership and revenue so that the residents and visitors in the county feel the program generates some money as well as utility. We want to build out a useful system. So I divided the presentation into two geographic areas, and both grants and station relocations are kind of mixed all in between. So we have a proposed list for stations we want to install in Vienna and Merrifield neighborhoods. And I'm going to go over to our next slide to show a map. So on the far right, you can see east of 495, we've got 3 stations planned, 2 along Route 29, as well as 1 along Route 50. In the Merrifield neighborhood, we've got several stations kind of to build out our existing network. So we go from 4 stations to about 8 stations. So we'd like to get another station into the Mosaic District. We'd like to put one near on Dorr Avenue and near Prosperity Avenue, as well as one down on Gatehouse Road, and then one also on Hilltop Road. And then to the far left, we've got 5 planned stations that are kind of anchored by the Vienna Metro South entrance. So one would be at the Providence Community Center. One would be at Route 29 in Circle Woods Drive. And one we'd like to put in at Mission Square Drive and Miranda Circuit. And then one also at Kingsbridge Drive and Draper Road. And then there's several blue dots, and those are stations planned for the city of Fairfax. So you see that, while Vienna may be the end of the metro in that part of our county, it certainly wouldn't be the end of bike share, and we'd have essentially a string of stations that would link the Vienna metro to all these places in the city of Fairfax as well as the Fairfax County. So our first station, our first station is at Kingsbridge Drive and Draper Drive, and just ignore the top there. I didn't have that right. And now we're at Hilltop Road and Willamere Drive. The next location we're looking to do is at Dorr Avenue and Prosperity Avenue. This would be near the entrance of the apartments here. It will be a little bit further down, but it will be in this parking bay here. 2 parking spaces would be repurposed. Going down to the Mosaic District at Strawberry Lane and District Avenue, we would actually put this in the ground floor of the garage. This seems like an unusual location, but it was suggested by the owner of the Mosaic District, and we're still working through kind of the approval process. We hope to get this station in as soon as we get that approval process worked out. Down here at Gatehouse Road and Telestar Court, we'd like to work with our colleagues at the Fairfax County Public School System to put a station along on their gravel path. it would kind of go right there. It would be kind of an interim location because if you look across the street, there's a red SUV. The property across the street will hopefully redevelop, and when that's done being built out, we'll just move it across the street to a permanent location. So that's it for Merrifield. And now moving over to Vienna, we're working with the Washington Metro to install a station as close to the Vienna Metro entrance as possible, so that people can hop on and off, and be able to walk quickly to the walk really close to the nearby bike share station. So we'll go within where the existing bike racks are. The Metro is actually will move those for us, as they're planning to install new ones and expand their bike racks at the Metro here relatively soon. Going a little bit further south, right here in the parking lot of the Providence Community Center is where we're planning to install one station, or proposing to install one station, excuse me. And so we'll go into the parking lot, and I thought this was fitting, but each of those signs say reserved for low emissions vehicles, which of course Capital Bike Share would be. And then going a little bit further south of that, along Circle Woods Drive and on Route 29, this station would go on the street, just inside from where Route 29 is. So if you're living across the street, you could walk over, check out a bike, and ride up to the Metro, or ride other places within your neighborhood, as well as with people on this side of the neighborhood, or this side of Route 29. 2 parking spaces will be repurposed here. Going a little bit further west into Mission Square Drive and Miranda Court, the station would be on street, but just 1 parking space would be repurposed. Since Capital Bike Share is a lot lower than the vehicles, it's much easier to see around and go to spaces that are generally not that are generally vehicles aren't allowed to park, such as this case here. And here's the actual Kingsbridge and Draper Drive. I apologize for the earlier snafu. And so you can see Draper Drive on the far right where it intersects. You go down the hill a little bit, and this is where the station would go. We will go on street, and there is no parking along the street, so we would plop the station right there. And then going east of 495 along Arlington Boulevard, or Route 50, and Allen Street, we put a station in 2 parking spaces right here. So this is a service road. It's a 2-way, so you can ride your bike in either direction, and it's relatively low stress compared to some of the other options that people would ride. And here we're working with our colleagues at WMATA to try to get a station as kind of a it's an extra capacity close to the Dunn-Loring Metro, but not too close, and try to generate some more trips. So again, this is subject to WMATA approval. It may be dropped if WMATA is ultimately not amenable. They've not given us a firm answer, yes or no, at the moment. Another location we're looking on, it is at Emily Street and Morris Street. You see there's lots of residential density with duplexes, townhouses, and apartments in here, and it will go right here and repurpose 2 parking spaces. And then over at Route 29 in Bisney Drive, or the highway in other words, we've got a lot of apartments on either side of the street. I wanted to be close to that crosswalk so people could get to and from, be able to cross the street, and so in this station would repurpose 2 parking spaces. And also improve visibility at the crosswalk too, since it's lower profile than a motor vehicle. And so that's it for the Merrifield, West Falls Church portion of Fairfax County, as well as the Vienna portion of Fairfax County. So next, we're looking to go into do a lot of things in Tysons. And so we've got a lot of stations that are coming in that would be new, as well as some stations that would move from some existing locations in Tysons to these spots here. So if you notice on our map, we've got a lot of so the red dots are existing stations, and our green dots are planned stations. And so if you notice that some of these green dots are really close to existing stations, those existing stations aren't performing very well, and so they're not attracting very many riders. A lot of our Tysons network was built out in 2016 and 2017, back when Tysons wasn't as urbanized as it is today. And so we didn't really have a lot of choice but to essentially go into office parks. And as you might imagine, during the pandemic, those areas have not done very well. People aren't going to the office very much. And so we propose moving some of these stations around to different places as those spaces become available. So one such space would be over here at Chainbridge Road and Anderson Road. You see we got 2 new apartment buildings on either side of the street there, kind of kitty corner, and the station's kind of would be in repurposed 2 parking spaces next to a bike lane. So there's a lot of density there. And I believe the space in the foreground here will eventually become a park. And I believe that's the plan. So this would be a good spot to kind of generate some trips to and from the Tysons Metro and the McLean Metro. And then another private property that just came online, and it came along with its own space for Capital Bikeshare at Dartford Drive and Anderson Road. So kind of up the hill from the McLean Metro. And they've got a purpose-built concrete pad for the station. We like that it serves both a grocery store across the street as well as these new buildings here. So this would be a station that would come from another portion of Tysons and hopefully generate some more trips for us. Another spot that we actually haven't served is the Greensboro Metro. So in Tysons, we serve Spring Hill. We serve, let's see here, we serve all the metros, but Greensboro right now. And so we'd like to serve the north side here, and it was physically impossible till about 6 months ago when the contractor built this concrete pad. And so we're able to move one of our existing stations here in order to better serve the metro and help people going to and from different places in this part of Tysons. Another location that that's kind of become available is right here on Jones Branch Drive and Blyton Street, in front of the high gate at the mile. We repurposed 2 parking spaces here. There's some retail in the foreground. So hopefully they'll bring in a new tenant relatively soon. And that would also further generate more trips. So there's a lot of density here. People will be able to ride up the hill in the bike lane to get to other parts of our network. Another location south of Tysons as part of our grant is at Madrillon Road and Boss Street. The station would be at the intersection of those. And it would be on street and repurposed 2 parking spaces. Across from going kind of up the hill from McLean Metro is Old Meadow Road and Cathy Lane. If you look kind of in the left side of the photo, there's some construction which has been complete, and there's a brand new bike bridge across into Tysons. So this station is kind of at the top of the hill, and it'll be a nice, easy ride to cross over into Tysons Corner itself, so to speak, and cross over 495 in a safe way. And 2 parking spaces here would be repurposed as part of this. Another spot, another part of Old Meadow, more down the hill, closer to McLean Metro, is at Old Meadow Road and Old Meadow Lane. The station would repurpose 2 parking spaces as well. And it's along these new bike lanes that have just been built. And then if you look in the very far right corner, if I can, there's some cones in the way, and there's actually a path that leads up to the new bike bridge. So you'll be able to ride down the hill and get on that path and head back up if you want to cross the new bike bridge over into Tysons. So we thought this would be a good location. And there's also a new apartment complex that will soon be open, or may have opened already, right across the street too. So there's a lot of residential density, and we'd love to be able to provide folks living there with an alternative to driving. Another spot we've looked at is along is a little bit further east of those locations at Pimmit Drive and Idyl Lane. And so this spot would repurpose 2 parking spaces. You can see in the foreground we've got a lot of high-rise apartments, as well as to the left of this photo, there's some single-family homes. So it would serve quite a few people there. And there's also new bike lanes on Pimmit Drive and Idyl Lane as well. And then further down along Pimmit Drive and Los Poblanos Lane, you can see there's a lot of some additional apartments, the Eves Fairfax Towers, as well as some across the street there. So there's a lot of density there, variety of incomes as well. And so the station will go on street, repurpose 2 parking spaces, and will be on the side with the bike lane of Pimmit Drive. Going back towards the Greensboro Metro and Boro Place, we're proposing to put this station on Silver Hill Drive near Boro Place. Just out of the photo is a Whole Foods. Every time we put during the pandemic, all of our stations near grocery stores throughout the region have done very, very well. And that trend has continued. People visit the grocery store a lot. They may not be buying, they're not always for large trip. They're not always going to buy lots and lots of things. Sometimes you need a few things. And riding Bikeshare to there to pick those up or bring those home is kind of a good option for folks. And so again, similarly to the other locations, we repurpose 2 parking spaces for the station. Another spot we're looking at is up towards the Spring Hill Metro along Tyco Road at the Adair Apartments. It's been that building's been there a while, but we think there's a lot of demand for Bikeshare there, as well as when other places along Tyco Road are developed. And so this location will go on Tyco in the parking lane right at the corner of Pointe Way. And again, 2 parking spaces would be repurposed for the Bikeshare station. Another spot we're looking at is at Westbranch Drive and Jones Branch Drive. And you actually see in the far right corner is a little blue dot, and that's the existing Bikeshare station on private property. So that location isn't many riders. So once we put this one in here at the Hanover Tysons apartment building, we'd probably move that one somewhere else. And this is what it looks like here. It would repurpose 2 parking spaces towards the corner of Jones Branch Drive. And then going further up West Branch Drive to Maitland Street. This building is supposed to be finished very shortly. They said December 2022, so hopefully it's done or close to being done. And it would also 2 parking spaces would be purposed for the station. And this is one we would move from somewhere else within Tysons to this location. So we could do those moves relatively quickly. The grant funded stations would take a little bit longer. One of the coolest things that we've happened in the last few years is we've had these black electric bikes. You've probably seen them around. Our contractor has provided them to all the member jurisdictions free of charge. Right now, they make up only about 6% of our fleet here in Fairfax County, but they've generated 15% of our trips. So that tells us if we add more electric bikes, we'll get more trips. One of the cool features about electric bikes is you don't have to leave them in a Bikeshare station all the time. You can actually lock them to a public bike rack. We call this dockless, and we allow you to do that within about a quarter mile or so of an existing Bikeshare station, and we call that the service area. Since we've had that feature on these bikes, we've had very high compliance with e-bike parking rules and have received very little negative feedback about the option. About 5% of our trips start or end outside of a dock all across the county, which is kind of which also kind of shows how people want to use these kind of bikes. So the equity members, any qualifying low-income residents in the county can actually ride these bikes for free. Whereas members would pay 15 or 10 cents a minute to ride them, and non-members would pay 15 cents a minute to ride them. And then also the equity members get a $2 out-of-station fee waived, whereas the rest of us have to pay that. So it's it's a really good deal for folks in that program. So what we're proposing to do is we'd like to acquire 95 electric bicycles instead of classic bikes with the Transportation Alternatives Program grant. By acquiring bikes, our own bikes, instead of relying on the contractors, we actually are able to keep electric bike service within the county because as of August of next year, the contractor is going to gradually begin phasing out those black electric bikes that have served us for 2.5 years so far. They're just not, they're first generation product. They're not designed for many years of service like the bikes we'd like to purchase. And you'll note here the electric bikes that we plan to buy cost quite a bit more, almost 4 times as much, but that cost is covered by our grant. And then there's a higher operating cost to maintaining electric bike service, but that cost is covered by our fees, like I mentioned on the previous slide. That 10 cents a minute members pay, the 15 cents a minute non-members pay. So it doesn't cost us any more to operate electric bikes versus our existing classic bike fleet. It's the same. And then I mentioned about the locking feature here, and you can see in a picture on the left, a gentleman pulling the lock out, and he's attaching it to a public bike rack. And then on the right, there are the existing service areas in Tysons, down in Merrifield, as well as an example in Reston. If you leave your bike, these bikes in the red area, we'll charge you a fee of $25. But if you leave them in the clear space within about a quarter mile of each of the stations, it's only $2. And the stations are represented by those red dots. And as we expand to Vienna, we'll have a new service area to show where you can park outside of a station there. And this is a photo of the electric bike that we propose to acquire. Its working name is called the Cosmo. You can see it's got its locking mechanism there in black. It's got a red fender in the back. It's a grayish white color. It's retro reflective, so a good chunk of the bike will, if you shine a light on it, it will actually reflect back at you. So it'll be much more visible than the black electric bikes we have today, as well as the red classic bikes that we have. And very, very visible at night. It's a very strong product, very durable. It's got GPS that we can, if the bike were to be stolen, we could use the GPS to track the thief. And if the thief is able to somehow disassemble the whole bike, they'll discover that every single part on it is unique, and they wouldn't have any value. And then also there's a bit stronger basket than we've had compared to our other bikes. So it's really great for going up hills, especially in hilly Fairfax County, in hilly Tysons, and in other places. And I think it's well worth our investment. So next steps, of course, is to we would work with our State Department of Transportation to obtain approval to order equipment for our grants. We would work with VDOT as well to obtain permits. We hope to install stations in the next year or two. And then most importantly, we'd like to hear from you about what your thoughts are on our proposals via Bike Fairfax at fairfaxcounty.gov through December 16th. You can give us a call at 703-877-5600 TTY 711, or you can send us a piece of mail to 4050 Legato Road, Suite 400, attention Zachary Desjardins, Fairfax, VA 22033. All right, and I will take your questions and feedback.
Thank you, Zach. Now we would like to open the meeting up for questions and comments. Here are the instructions. Raise your hand located at the top of your screen next to the three dots. I will enable your microphone and call on you to ask your question. When you are finished with your question, please lower your hand so there's no confusion. Please unmute yourself when your name is called and ask your question or provide your comment. Then please mute yourself after you have asked your question. If you are calling in, please press *5 to raise your hand. And when you are called upon by your phone number, press *6 to unmute. After you are finished, please push *6 to mute yourself and *5 to lower your hand. So we'll go ahead and start taking questions. If there are any, I'll look for raised hands. I just want to also mention that the project website is at www.fairfaxcounty.gov/transportation/bike-Fairfax-county-bikeshare. Is there any interest in viewing our website? Looking for any
You'll
raised
find this presentation
hands
there shortly.
Yes. And the raise hand is at the top of the screen. No one wants to go first, I know. But if you really have no questions, we can close out the meeting. Give it another minute or two.
And if you think of something later, feel free to email or contact us anyway, and I will answer your question that way.
Well, Lauren, Zach, this is Dahlia here again, and Sivan. I just really want to thank you. I'm very excited, and I think the work you've done to help identify, which has been, I believe, several months now, the stations, the new ones, the ones we're moving. And I'm personally very excited about the e-bikes. As you said, the hills make it difficult for the use of regular bikes by most of us. So I think that's a great addition. And I'll make sure that we also send this out through my newsletter so people have an opportunity to watch the meeting and to share out. So I really want to thank you and everyone who participated today.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Palchik. All right, well, seeing no raised hands, we can go ahead and conclude the meeting. This will conclude our meeting on the Capital Bikeshare expansion in Providence District. A recording of the meeting will be available on the webpage. Again, I'll repeat that webpage address. It's www.fairfaxcounty.gov/transportation/bike-walk/Fairfax-county-bikeshare. And so we'll have it posted in the next day or so. Thank you again for joining us tonight, and we really appreciate your time and participation this evening.
Thanks, everyone.